Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening, everyone. Well, first to some developing news. And police are on the hunt for an offender after a brutal assault at Invermay this afternoon. Let's go live to Garth Burley on the scene. Good evening, Garth. Now, what is the latest and what's the police presence like?
Well, Kim, there are a few police cars on the scene at the moment here in Invermay, at New Street in Invermay, but nothing like we saw half an hour ago when this area was swarmed with authorities and detectives searching for this offender. What we do know is that around 4 this afternoon, a man was struck in the back of the head in one of the units behind me. He was rushed to the Launceston General Hospital, although the extent of his injuries are not yet known. The suspect behind the attack fled in a car and is still at large.
We've just finished our lockdown of the unit complex. We have detectives here at the moment who are conducting the inquiries in relation to some witnesses that have come forward. So we'll be reviewing CCTV footage, speaking to the victim and speaking to these witnesses.
As you mentioned, Kim, this is a developing situation, and now, as we go to air, police have just moved the search for this offender away from New Street in Invermay.
Well, Tasmania's COVID testing clinics have been overwhelmed as nearly 1,500 people scrambled to be swabbed. In Launceston, frustrated travellers queued for hours outside a clinic, the rush prompted by a growing cluster of cases in Queensland.
Launceston's COVID testing clinic, as described by the furious people stuck in the queue.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
A big shambles. It's really disappointing.
They don't have things very well organised.
The gridlock traffic spilling from Wellington Street onto nearby roads, businesses blocked as many experienced the collateral damage of Queensland's latest outbreak.
If you're going to have Queenslanders down here or interstate people, you need more testing.
Anyone who visited the now high-risk areas ordered by Public Health to rush to these clinics. What they didn't know is how long they'd be forced to wait.
We've been here since 8:30. It's now, we've been here 3 hours.
Worse still, in a taxi with the fare running.
What's it up to at the moment?
$125.
We do need to continue to ensure that we have sufficient staffing levels at these testing sites.
Around 1,400 swabs were carried out statewide, but in Hobart, reports people in need of a test were turned away. Frustration compounded by a gap in communication channels. The public health hotline sent into overdrive by a surge in calls.
We are currently experiencing a high volume of calls. Please try again shortly. If you have been in a high-risk premise or location, it is important that you self-isolate until you are able to contact the hotline.
Tasmanian Chamber of Commerce President Michael Bailey is one of those returning from the hotspot.
We have a requirement if we're self-isolating to have a COVID test within 48 hours, which needs to be booked through the public health hotline. So 48 calls later, I've finally been able to speak to someone.
The Premier is urging people to be patient, but says the government is scaling up the response.
We're increasing the resources on an hourly basis to ensure that we can meet that demand.
From tomorrow, a new clinic will be created at Kingston, and anyone attending the Launceston site will need to book an appointment rather than simply drive through. More staff will also be deployed to the health hotline.
We have not seen permanent staff put on dedicated to those roles.
In Queensland, this was day one of a citywide lockdown as health authorities scrambled to contain a growing cluster. Today confirming 8 locally acquired COVID cases, a number expected to rise in the coming days.
Of course, we want to get on top of this community transmission.
Whether that will prompt another chaotic charge for testing in Tasmania tomorrow is the next question. Garth Burley, 7 Tasmania News.
The Liberal Party is campaigning to ease the state's housing burden, pledging to build hundreds of homes and help young Tasmanians into jobs. Meanwhile, Labor has put forward anti-protest laws, which it says will protect workers from radical Green protesters. But it's a slated visit from the Prime Minister to Tasmania in the coming weeks, which has Labor seeing red.
A clear message for the Prime Minister as he prepares to travel to Tasmania ahead of the election.
I'm surprised that Scott Morrison has the balls to show his face in Tasmania after he's cut the wages of workers right across the state and cut JobKeeper to thousands of businesses.
But the Tasmanian Liberals are happy to play ball.
He's the Prime Minister of this country and I'm happy to have him on the trail.
And I'm looking forward to having him here so he can listen to Tasmanians.
Jobs and housing top of the agenda today for the Liberal Party, part of the Hobart Showgrounds to be transformed over the next 3 years. The $42 million investment will see 450 homes built, with a mixture of residential and social housing, but will see the Hobart Show moved.
There's no doubt there'll be some disruption for the next 2 or 3 years, and we'll just need to look at how we work through that and what other sites might be available.
Labor says it announced a similar proposal for the showground last year. Party leader Rebecca White focusing on anti-protest laws today. Proposed legislation put forward by the government failed to make it through the Legislative Council last week. It says its proposed legislation will
make sure that there are workplace laws in Tasmania that protect our workers against radical green protests, to make sure that they're not coming into their work sites and shutting down these businesses.
This is the Labor Party trying to do a Liberal mini-me. What they want to do is create separate classes of protesters and treat Tasmanians who are standing up for a safe climate and for the forests like another class of criminals.
Labor ruling out forming a minority government with the Greens.
Labor will not do any deals with the Greens. They do not represent the values of the Labor Party. They don't represent the values of many Tasmanians.
Employment also shaping up as an issue, with new jobs hubs announced for Huonville, Burnie, Brighton and St Helens, which the Liberal Party says could create up to 2,000 jobs.
What this is about is ensuring that we have the networks in place to ensure that local people, young people especially, can link to the jobs that are available in our community and they can receive the skills and training necessary to get those jobs.
We released a fully costed jobs plan to create 35,000 jobs across Tasmania over the next 4 years, including jobs hubs.
Elizabeth O'Neill, 7 Tasmania News.
A frightening video has emerged of a jet ski speeding and smashing into the Millbrook Rise boat ramp at New Norfolk. Marine and Safety Tasmania says it's a second incident like this in 5 years. MAST General Manager Peter Hopkins now reminding jet skiers to use their kill switch at all times. Charities and the business sector have joined forces to help released prisoners. Connect 42 and the Tasmanian Chamber of Commerce have developed a program to better prepare those returning to society. Former inmates who have turned their lives around believe it will make a difference.
I think when they get out that, there's someone they can trust, they can go to them. They've got to learn to trust them, obviously, because there's some people that get out and can't trust nobody.
So we're expecting to be working with 15 people across the next 3 years, and it may be that some people will be with us for a few months and then move on into employment, in which case we'll slot somebody else into that place.
The program focuses closely on literacy and life skills. More children now have the chance to hop on a horse and give riding a go thanks to a new scholarship. Variety Tasmania has partnered with a local riding group, saying the sport can build physical strength and confidence.
Saddled up and taking a stroll, this 10-year-old rider forming a close bond with his horse, an activity creating a world of change.
Joseph being here has really helped him because he's able to be outside in the outdoors, get to enjoy the peace that comes with it, and also the animals. They have a real calming effect on him.
Joseph, the first recipient of a new scholarship created by Variety Tasmania and the Riding for the Disabled Association, funding 250 lessons for children living with varying abilities and needs over the coming year.
For kids who otherwise would fall through the gaps, they benefit from the riding sessions offered by RDAT. However, they are unable to secure funding through NDIS.
We've had riders who go off to Victoria to the national championships every 2 years, and we have riders who come here for just the therapy side of things. So they may be on a sheepskin, they may be supported by 2 sidewalkers.
With the sessions said to offer a range of benefits for the budding riders.
For a lot of riders who need that physical benefit, that is very beneficial. There is a lot of riders who will need to build up that confidence as well. Now, if you're able to control a horse, an animal much bigger than yourself, it is a very good feeling.
Joseph really loves it. I think it's really helped him to build some confidence. He's more willing to try new things.
Ruby Kamain, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmania's newest distillery has opened its doors in Westbury. The idea for Western Tears, born by 2 locals who started out building stills.
Our love of whisky and engineering has made us build this distillery, which is the next generation of distillery in Tasmania.
What makes a great gin is passion and love for the spirit. So we've got 12 botanicals in both of our gins. Quite a few of those are from the Tasmanian Highlands.
Western Tears has 2 gins on offer and hopes to release a triple distilled single malt whisky in 2023. A festival dedicated to all things beer has made the hop from Launceston to New Norfolk. Organisers hope the Fresh Hops weekend will be lager than life, with plenty of brewers already on board.
If you love beer, this might be a festival worth hopping along to.
What makes it unique is that all the brewers that are involved in it, they get to make a fresh hop beer.
Fresh Hops is back, but in a different form. The event had been a fixture at St John's Bar in Launceston. Now it's shifting south.
If we didn't take it on, it probably wouldn't have run again. So we've spoken to the previous organisers and we've brought it down here.
There's another good reason. The Derwent Valley is Tassie's home of hops.
When you align an event with the real DNA of a region, that's when you see real success.
Local brewers are frothing with excitement.
I think it's great. It's something I've wanted to see for years, and I've always thought that the Derwent Valley would be perfect for something like this.
And perfect for putting some extra cash in the tills of local businesses, especially after the tough year that's been. The event will be held on the 17th and 18th of April, and if enough people have a beer, it'll be back next year. Brewers will even be using wild-grown hops. As for what that tastes like...
Well, we'll find out with the wild ones. It's very unpredictable.
Sean McComish, 7 Tasmania News.
Launceston says its playing list this year is even stronger than the one which reached the TSL's mountaintop in 2020. The Blues face crosstown rival North Launceston, which is missing key parts of its recent dynasty. Coming face-to-face following last year's grand final, Launceston is now the hunted after ending 3 years of Bomber dominance.
Pressure is welcomed, and you only get that when you start to do well, and I've encouraged the boys to just embrace it and take it head on.
Since that final siren, the Blues have pocketed more than just the Premiership Cup. 2011 medalist Josh Woolley headlines a raft of former players returning to Windsor Park.
He's got a very good leg, and it gives us some drive of half-back and really set us up from there.
North Launceston's off-season has been littered with high-profile departures, Taylor Whitford and Josh Ponting the biggest.
They're going to be replaced by kids that probably aren't up to their level at the moment, which is not ideal, but it's also exciting at the same time having kids that have come through our junior ranks to refill those spots.
Brad Cox-Goodger isn't setting any expectations for the season, nor is new skipper Jay Foon. Just don't suggest the Northern Bombers dynasty is done.
We've got some talented guys, we've still got some experienced senior footballers, so yeah, I wouldn't write us off. We'll still be a strong team.
Also in the round of rivalries, Eastern Shore foes Clarence and Lauderdale, who have been bracing for the new man-on-the-mark rule.
Once they get to sort of under 13s, under 14s, they're being trained to protect the corridor and jump around on the mark and those types of things. So it hasn't been easy to train it, but we're continuing to work on that.
After more than a decade of Darren Winter, Dan's now the man in the coach's box, his communication resonating with the players.
Obviously Windy's been there for 11 years and now we've got a new voice in Dan, so he's sort of put his own mould on the footy club.
And big changes at Clarence too, after an exodus of senior players, forcing a widespread recruiting drive.
We lost our captain and Chris Neild, who's been our leading goal kicker for 3 or 4 years, and Ryan Barley, who's been our number one ruck for a period of time, and Clint Riley, who's been, arguably one of our best mids for, 4 or 5 years.
We lost probably 3 of our top tier players, so we've gained probably 5 top tier, so it'll be good to see how we go.
Launceston's upcoming NBL games have been pushed back due to Brisbane's COVID outbreak. The New Zealand Breakers will now play the Adelaide 36ers next Tuesday and the Perth Wildcats on April 10. They'll then play the Cairns Taipans and the 36ers again at the Silverdome in late April. Meanwhile, former Breakers star and 5-time NBL champion Mika Vukona is joining the Jack Jumpers as a consultant. The Hobart Chargers women's side has secured a signing coup with Madeline Garrick to join the team. She's played in the WNBL, most recently with Melbourne, and has also represented Australia in both regular and 3-on-3 basketball.
I've coached against Maddie and it was really hard at times just not to watch her play because she's so skillful, so talented, can shoot from the three, score at the basket.
You've got Kathleen, Maddie, you've got Ellie, you've got Shana, plus a very variety of veterans and younger girls.
Garrick will miss parts of the season as the national 3-on-3 side looks to qualify for the Tokyo Olympics. And finally in hockey, Canterbury says its team is on the rise after breaking a 21-game drought with a 4-1 win over University. Former Tassie Van Diemen's player Blair Beard was among the scorers. She rejoined the side this year following a stint interstate.
We've been building each training session, so the confidence is definitely coming back into the group, and we knew after a good performance against Grads last week that we had it in us.
Currently has Derwent won 3 on the trot. Spearheads Paul Anker and Angus Bolton lead the league's top scorers, and the side expects more of its players to catch up.
We try to play very selflessly up front. I think we tend to high-five the person who sets up the goal first. And then there's on top of that list, there's a few guys who tend to average 10 goals a season who haven't really hit the scoreboard that much.
Northwest Grads and Canterbury were the other round 3 winners in the men's league. Diamondbacks and OHA walked away with the points in the women's.
Good evening, Hobart and Launceston, 22 degrees today. Burnie and Devonport recorded 21. See the numbers coming up there, a fairly cool night as we start to get into autumn. 23 the high at Cressy and Eddystone Point, Smithton and Bushy Park 21, Friendly Beaches 20, Lowhead, Strawn and the Islands 19, Lyalweenie 15 degrees. The cloud over the west and far south brought just a few light showers there, the rest of the state fairly sunny. Convective cloud lies over eastern and southeastern areas of the mainland, thunderstorms over the top end, the rest fairly clear as well. The high centres over Victoria tomorrow, weak troughs over Queensland and WA, a cold front to the southwest there as well. Winds west and northwesterly at 10 to 20 knots, stronger over the southern waters, variable winds over the central plateau lakes. A strong wind warning for waters between Southeast Cape and Low Rocky Point. Forecast for tomorrow, partly cloudy for Hobart, 23, 22 for Geeveston and Bothwell, bit of cloud but fine. Launceston, a top of 24, mostly sunny. Devonport 22 and 25 the high for Cressy. Might get the top again tomorrow. Mostly sunny in Burnie, 20 the top for Strawn. Partly cloudy for Curry on King Island, 19 the maximum. 22 for St Helens and sunny in the east. Swansea 22 as well. Orford completing the trifecta. And a high UV of 6 predicted. On Thursday, fine and partly cloudy ahead of a shower over the southwest and far south. Patchy early fog on Good Friday and fine ahead of Prawns and Pinkling. And on Saturday, sunny for all regions apart from the west. Partly cloudy and 28 in Perth, 28 for Adelaide and sunny. Early cloud over Melbourne. Fine for Canberra but a shower for Sydney and possibly Brisbane. Partly cloudy, 19 in Hobart, sunny in Launceston, 20 right now and sunny in Devonport. Kim, watching that sport tonight, all this stuff about Patrick Cripps for Carlton playing injured. I turn up here every night suffering from something.
You do, and you always let us know too. Nothing but a little bit of a whinge here and there. That's all your news for this Tuesday evening. Have a great night. Good night.